The battle rages across the entire planet. It has done for weeks now. They came out of nowhere. Some say they came from beneath us, were somehow on this planet for perhaps millions of years before we even colonized, from how deep they seem to be dug in, if you believe the scuttlebutt. But there isn't often much time for that now. Some say they came from the stars, their fleet sweeping aside all of our navy and planetary defences. But it doesn't really matter how or why they are here. They are here, and they are refusing to leave again. The best forces we have are fighting in key positions, for logistics, for supply, for movement or morale. The places we cannot lose. The places we have to retake. Sisters of Battle fight them through the central built-up areas, providing the main spine to the defence. The Marines, the Emperor's own Angels of Death. They are the ones who have the job of trying to push them hard, recapturing key points, hitting what seems to be the Xenos' own strategically important locales. We are told that they are winning, that we are winning. But it doesn't feel like it, from their numbers and state when we see them. Always bleeding, always reacting at a dash, always firefighting. So it lands on the rest of us to deal with the rest of the war. The Emperor protects, but he seems to have his attention on those heroes in power armour a heck of a lot more than the rest of us, for we, the common soldiery, are taking a pasting. The shufflers are bad enough with all of their firepower, their weapons melting people as we look on. Regularly they get up time and time again. But we have gotten used to this. We now focus down on one until it is dead, and then move on to the next. Well, we do if there are any of us left by that point. But there are worse things. Much worse. As the battles fracture across every major hive and factotum, it has become a game of cat and mouse. We are being broken into teams and sent out to hunt them down and end them. Brass obviously have no idea what is going on, or they would not be doing this, because they don't know what we are up against. They have no idea. Because out of the limelight, there are things that stalk, things that do not come out into the light. They move in packs, their stench heralding their approach, that and the scrape of metal or rockcrete as they scuttle around the periphery of our vision. Always there, hunting the hunters. The sweep teams that come back are always the ones that made no contact. Always. So I'm doing my very best to stay as quiet as possible. Not so that we do not alert our enemy so we can get the drop on them, but, like all my squad, in the vain hope that they will not notice us at all, not take up the scent. But we are out of luck. My nose tells me this first, the waft of decay and old blood. Rancid. It catches on the air and we all immediately take up defensive positions. Quietly. But it's too late. We can hear them. Scuttling above us, scraping below, a pipe bumped into here. A marble floor of a reception room screeches under their metallic rushed air. They surround us. We cannot get out. And for a handful of minutes, it becomes utterly silent. My anticipation gets the better of me. As I lean around a corner, I have to wipe the sweat from my eyes before I poke my head around to see. My grip on my lasgun is too tight. I know it is. But my hands are sweaty, slightly shaking. As a small felinoid rushes past my vision, I jump, and my lasgun goes off. Its unmistakable report echoes around the factotum as I now feel every eye in the squad on me for a second, then back out, looking into the dark. If we make it out alive, I am not sure I am going to be arriving back at camp with the rest. Not now. And I understand. I would do the same. But it isn't going to be that way. As we hear the screeching again, the smell returns much stronger. They're coming. Philbin dips his head over cover right in front of me, and to my shock, he is hit. But this is a distraction. As I watch him melt, his every cell being eroded by the spectral green ray of death, they hit us from the other side. Metal monstrosities, but different. They move fast, maniacal screams issuing from Vox units in their skulls. The razor-sharp claws are distended, elongated, things more like swords than knives or claws. They charge round our cover, and in moments it is over. I get up and run. The others are in pieces, so many pieces, all over the area. I look back to see some of the monsters stop and begin to flay the skin off my friends. Some are draping the skin across their arms, their shoulders, their heads. It explains the stench. I run. I keep running, expecting them to catch me. But they did not. They let me leave. Why? Did they gain enough skin for their purposes from my friends, my squad? Or was it that I had dropped my lasgun before I took off? That they would not attack someone unarmed? I doubt that. I run. I keep running. Finally, my lungs burning, my arms, my legs. I have to stop. I am at a ledge, and I look down on the facility, the horrors that are going on. I have lost my lasgun. I have discarded my weapon in the face of the enemy. I cannot return to camp now, and I cannot go on. I raise my hands out wide, looking at the factotum from at least 70 stories up. I close my eyes and push myself forward. I am flying. They cannot harm me now. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the important forces, factions, and units of the Warhammer 40k universe, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today we are to introduce the flayed ones of the Necrons, a terror, but not only to the lesser races. No, these beings are also a stark and real threat to even the Necrons as a whole, and herald their eventual, inevitable degeneration into madness. If you have not seen my entry on the Silent King or the Destroyer cults, then it would be a good thing to catch them after this entry for a complete picture. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, Flayed Ones. Flayed Ones are carrion creatures, the victims of a terrible madness that took root during the last days of the war in heaven. Their curse was the parting gift of one of the Catan, Landugor, the Flayer. It is said that when the Necrons turned upon the Catan, the Flayer was not merely splintered as were his brothers, but utterly obliterated. Yet in his dying moments, he called down a terrible curse upon his betrayers, tainting them with an echo of his fearsome hunger. For eons the Flayer's curse went unnoticed and unseen. By the time the madness began to manifest, the afflicted Necrons had travelled far and wide, unwittingly spreading the disease to countless worlds. A Necron over whom the Flayer curse has taken hold suffers a slow and torturous erosion of sanity. It begins to revel in the bloody ruin of fleshed foes, and is driven to claim gruesome trophies of skin, sinew, and bone. As the madness progresses, the victims become compelled to feast upon the fallen. It cannot actually digest or consume flesh in any sense. The blood simply seeps through the gaps in its exoskeleton to clog its joints and pool at its feet. Yet still the Necron is driven to gorge itself upon gore in a doomed attempt to sate an unquenchable lust. Physical changes occur shortly thereafter, racking and twisting the afflicted Necron's form into something as warped in body as it is in function. Ultimately, the accursed Necron simply disappears, drawn by unknown instinct to a pocket dimension where he will forever dwell amidst the charnel palaces of the Flayed Ones. It is said only the Orosk know the reason why. Other Necrons loathe the Flayed Ones and fear them for the disease they carry. As a result, those suspected of infection are banished or destroyed before the affliction becomes contagious. However, no manner of precaution can prevent a pack of Flayed Ones joining a battle already underway. They can materialize at any time, lured from their bleak dimension by the scent of blood and carnage. Flayed ones commonly attack with little regard for strategy, though they will occasionally have the presence of mind not to attack immediately, stalking their target until it is vulnerable. It is best done from downwind, as flayed ones are wreathed in a dense stench of rotting flesh. When the moment to attack comes, flayed ones strike without hesitation, slashing at their prey with twisted talons and keening shrill madness. If the enemy flees, flayed ones rarely pursue, choosing instead to feast upon their victims. However, if the enemy proves particularly resilient, the flayed ones inevitably retreat, skittering into the shadows to await a more tractable target. Most overlords make little or no attempt to adapt their plans for the unwanted action of flayed ones, preferring rather to accept any advantage their presence brings. Regardless of the horrific creature's usefulness, it is not uncommon for an overlord to order the execution of any surviving flayed ones at battle's end. Alas, only the most insane are slaughtered easily. The rest slip sideways through the dimensions to reappear in their palaces of rotting flesh, laden with their newly claimed trophies and reeking of fresh blood. We long ago removed our bodies from mortality's grasp and bartered away our souls for technological baubles and the trappings of power. Our minds, then, are all that remain for us to lose, and it is here that the next stroke against us will fall. Though our individual afflictions may take different forms, sooner or later we will all be lost to madness. Zarek, last of the Silent Kings. End quote. The Flare Curse is a terrifying situation to the Necrons, even more so than the madness that makes previously stable warriors turn to the existence of the Destroyer cult. At least the Destroyer cults can be semi-directed and almost reasoned with. Almost. But that is seen more as a natural reaction to dislocation in time, the shock of waking from stasis, the fury at the lesser races for still having biological bodies, and the soul that goes with them. It is worrying, but somehow logical. A psychological reaction to all of the horrors that the Necrons have been forced to endure and to perform themselves due to the time that they were awake. The war in heaven that was waged. But the Flare Curse is exactly that. A curse. And one from their old star gods, their masters, the Catan. And so it is not known how it is contracted, how it is passed from one Necron to another, nor how to contain it, for, as we have heard, the flayed ones can indeed appear via subdimensional rifts, and just stalk the battlefields of the galaxy at their whim. So it may be that the only way that the Necrons could potentially end the threat would be to combine and then wipe out all of the throne worlds and the crown worlds of the Orsk dynasty. But even then, would that end the threat? It is unlikely. And so the irony of the Necron existence continues to darken, for their pact with the Catan has led them to losing their souls, and then, with the immortality they once prized, all they can do is look on as their entire race and culture sets its course directly into the maw of the madness of the Destroyer cults and flayed ones. It may well be that the greatest curse on the Necrons was not actually the loss of their souls, but the dark and tainted gift of an immortality for which they were not physically, mentally, or culturally prepared. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to Necron Flayed ones. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. If you see the worth in what we are doing, then do also consider joining our Patreon, or giving the video a share if that is beyond your present scope. It will be a great boon. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.